Hey, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Southern Woke. If you're new here, I'm Kalan,
And I'm Marena.
and welcome. Today, we have scoured the internet and we have found the top 5 stories that are going on in outer space today. We have compiled them into a list for y'all, and we are going to break it down.
Yes, we are. So we're just gonna jump right in with number 5, rethinking the Big Bang. Okay, so we all know that the Big Bang was pretty much a educated guess of how the universe started, I guess. I don't know, but this further proves that we really clearly have not 100% of the idea that's actually going on. So, we have all probably heard about how the James Webb Telescope was launched in space back in 2021, but recently it found one of the most interesting discoveries to date. This telescope was able to look back in time 13.4 billion years ago and found the earliest galaxies that humans have ever seen. It was believed up until this discovery that the first galaxies didn't form until 500,000 years after the Big Bang. But now the telescope has revealed to us the faint light from 6 different galaxies that formed only 350,000 years after the Big Bang. These galaxies appear as fuzzy dots because they're so unfathomably far that yeah, they're just fuzzy dots. Period. Okay. The dots glow reddish in color because this ancient light is being stretched because the universe is always expanding, and that stretched light creates longer wavelengths which appear red on that spectrum. We've all seen it in science class. You know what I'm talking about. So, this discovery was possible because of the near infrared spectrograph, or the NIRSpec, which is an instrument on the James Webb Telescope. The spectrometer acts like a prism as it separates lights into different colors so that astronomers can analyze the physical properties and the composition of what they're looking at. The researchers looked for specific patterns in light caused by the extreme redshift, which allowed them to confirm the age of the galaxies from which the light came from. I hope you could follow that because I had to read it about 5 times for it to make sense to me. So, then in April of this year, the European Space Observatory, or the ESO, saw that saw what they believed to be the remnants of the first star explosions made after the Big Bang. If you're super nerdy and want to read the whole study, you can find it in the Astrophysical Journal. And the discovery was made using the VLT, which literally stands for Very Large Telescope in
There ain't
Chile.
no way it stands for Very Large Telescope.
It does. And I think there's like another acronym for like another one that is like what is another word for just humongous, like the HLT, for example. Like they just named it again, but it's bigger and better. Maybe it's in this article. I think I typed it. Okay.
That's wild. That is so uncreative. The Very Big Telescope. Very Large
These
Telescope.
scientists, they deal with really complicated things all day, so they probably just wanted to name it something freaking simple.
You're right, you're right.
Let them have one simple thing. So, the researchers were able to identify 3 distant cosmic gas clouds that dated back billions of years ago. This is where it starts sounding complicated to me once again, but some of you may know exactly what I'm talking about, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. From what I understand, these clouds were found by following the tracks of quasars, which are jets of light fueled by supermassive black holes. The team analyzed data on several quasars observed with the X shooter instrument on the ESO's VLT. Many Wait, the X shooter splits light into extremely wide ranges of colors, identifying many different chemical elements and the energy of their explosions. So, like, think of it like each chemical on the periodic table is assigned a color, and this tool is able to just like identify those chemicals by color, if that
Gotcha.
makes sense. These first supernovas release different chemical elements such as carbon, oxygen, and magnesium, which are present in the outer layers of stars. But some of these explosions were not energetic enough to expel heavier elements like iron, which is found only in the cores of stars. As the light from a quasar travels through the universe, it passes through gas clouds where different chemical elements leave an imprint on the light. And this discovery, just like the discovery of the six galaxies I mentioned earlier, gives us a sneak peek at some of the earliest days since the Big Bang. And more importantly, it proves that more research needs to be done, and newer and more powerful tools will help us understand even more. ESO's upcoming Extremely Large Telescope, or the ELT, will be able to help researchers study many of these rare gas clouds in greater detail, and we will be able to finally uncover the mysterious nature of the very first stars.
All right, y'all. Coming in at number 4, the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Bezos himself in outer space. I just sounded like such a Jeff Bezos fanboy there. Like, I really don't like him that much.
Yeah, I
But
was like,
y'all,
the man and the myth, the legend.
you know that like TikTok song? It's like, da, 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 24. That's not the
Oh,
words. Jeffrey
yes.
Bezos. That's kind of what the vibe I was going
Yes.
for. Okay, y'all. So Jeffrey Bezos went to space, making him one of like the very first commercial flights to space, I guess is what they're calling it. Because in case y'all didn't
Mhm.
realize, it's kind of like a thing happening right now. Like people are becoming able to pay money to go and just take trips to outer space, which is something that I think if you said like 10, 20 years ago, everybody would think that you're insane. But it's something that's becoming a reality, and every day it's getting closer and closer that more and more people are going to be able to have this experience. But of course, the richest man in the world would be one of the first to actually have this experience. So on July 20th, Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket successfully launched to space and carried Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and his crew on a historic suborbital flight. The launch marked a major milestone for the commercial space industry, as it was the first crewed flight of Blue Origin's spacecraft. The flight was about 10 minutes in total, with the rocket reaching an altitude of 62 miles above the Earth's surface. During this time, the crew experienced weightlessness and marveled at the stunning views of the planet. The capsule then descended back to Earth, landing safely in the West Texas desert. Along with Jeffrey Bezos, the crew included his brother Mark Bezos, Wally Funk, which is an 82-year-old aviation pioneer, and Oliver Damon, which is an 18-year-old Dutch student who is an 18-year-old Dutch physics student. Funk, who trained as an astronaut in the 1960s but never got a chance to fly to space until now, became the oldest person to ever reach outer space. So,
Hmm.
all right, I'm kind of space illiterate, we could call it. So, if why does 62 miles not sound like a lot to me? Like they said that they went to outer space, but they only went 62 miles above the ground. But then they were talking about the stunning views of the Earth. Like they're just kind of seeing like a little bit of Earth, right? Like they're not like in like black space. They're like that kind of blue hazy space, right?
Well, I'm about to Google it and we'll know for sure. Let's see. How thick?
How thick is space?
No,
Man, she
is
constantly expanding.
no, how thick is Earth's atmosphere? I don't know if the atmosphere is ever. Well, yeah, you can say like the air is thick. Yeah, that makes sense.
Let me find out. It says like 60 is where you break out of Earth's
60
atmosphere.
miles. So they went
Bruh, they went
2
2 miles
miles.
past it.
Mhm. So technically, well, I want a picture. I need to see it. I need like a whole ass diagram. Here we go.
And see, y'all, if y'all were following us on the YouTube right now, you're probably looking at a picture of Earth from 60 miles up.
Oh yeah. Best believe it. So, oh yeah, it's so we got the troposphere, which is where the planes fly, the stratosphere. In the picture, I can't tell what that is supposed to be that is in the stratosphere. It looks like a hot air balloon or a paraglider, or but like there ain't no way they're higher than a plane. Anyways, the mesosphere is where asteroids, I guess, start to dissipate. I don't know. There's no actual description. It's just the words in a picture. So I'm trying to just assume what they mean. And then the thermosphere has what looks like the northern lights. Wait, is that what it's called?
Like I was about to say the Bermuda Triangle. Is that like the same thing?
No.
The Bermuda
Bermuda
Triangle is in the
Triangle
same
is in the
area as the Northern
ocean.
Lights.
No. The
Like you can
Bermuda
see the.
Triangle is like at the edge of Florida.
Are you positive that while you're passing through the Bermuda Triangle, that you can't see the Northern Lights?
I mean, maybe you can see it, but the actual occurrence is over more so, I believe, like Northern Europe into Russia is like the origin, I think.
You know, you would think for having run a conspiracy podcast for 3 years, we would have talked about like the Bermuda Triangle at this point or done some research on it.
Oh, it's coming. I think it's been on the list.
I feel like it's just too cliche. Everybody talks about the Bermuda Triangle.
No, but we're going to talk about it eventually because
apparently we do need to learn more on it.
And I want to know all the spooky things. Like, I've only heard a few. Maybe. But anyways, the thermosphere is where the aurora, you know what I'm talking about? Like the northern lights occur,
Aurora Borealis. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
That's the same thing as the northern lights. Okay. And then finally we have the exosphere. So that they went through all the spheres and they went 2 miles over. So coming in at number 3, we have, speaking of the man, the myth and the legend, SpaceX explosion that was actually kind of a success. So, on April 20th of this year, the engines on SpaceX's Super Heavy booster ignited in a huge cloud of fire, smoke, and dust, and the Starship rose slowly upward off the launch pad in Texas. But about a minute later, the rocket, the most powerful ever built, passed through a period of maximum aerodynamic pressure, one of the crucial moments for the launch of any rocket. But shortly after, it began to tumble before exploding in a fireball high above the Gulf of Mexico. Despite the mission's fiery outcome, Bill Nelson, the NASA administrator, offered congratulations to the company, saying, "Every great achievement throughout history has demanded some level of calculated risk, but with great risk comes great reward." The space agency is relying on SpaceX to build a version of Starship that will carry 2 astronauts from lunar orbit to the surface of the moon during its Artemis 3 mission. Okay. There was great anticipation from the flight, as the rocket could one day carry massive amounts of cargo and many people into space. Before the launch, which had no people aboard and aimed to validate whether the design of the rocket system is sound, Elon Musk had lowered people's expectations. He said it might take several tries before Starship succeeds at this test flight. But the launch achieved a number of important milestones, with the rocket flying for 4 minutes and getting well clear of the launch pad. The brief flight produced reams of data for engineers to understand how the vehicle performed. It may look that way to some people, but it's not a failure, said Daniel Dumbacher, the executive director of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and a former high-level NASA official. Still, the flight fell short of complete success. The flight plan called for the Starship spacecraft to reach a higher altitude of about 150 miles before splashing down in the Pacific Ocean near Hawaii about 90 minutes later. It remains to be seen how the flight outcome might affect NASA's schedule, which optimistically calls for the first moon landing by astronauts aboard Starship to occur in late 2025. When SpaceX began building Starship, it was motivated by Elon Musk's dream of sending people to live on Mars someday, an endeavor that would require the transport of enormous amounts of supplies to succeed. But entrepreneurs and futurists are thinking closer to home. A gargantuan, fully reusable vehicle would slash the cost of sending things to space, leading some to imagine how Starship could carry mammoth space telescopes to peer at the cosmos or squadrons of robots to explore other worlds.
I don't like how you said that word. Squadrons?
Well, how would you say it?
Squadrons.
Whatever. Tomato, tomato. Even though it's tomato. Who the fuck says tomato?
Seriously. Kind of just proved my point there.
Shut up. It's like data or data.
I'll give you that one. It's definitely data, though.
There we go. Others are designing larger satellites that will be cheaper because they will not have to use expensive components currently needed to fit into the size and weight constraints imposed by present day rockets. Flying rockets and reusing them has massive potential to change the game and transportation to orbit. And it could enable a whole new class of missions, said Phil Larson, who served as a White House space advisor during the Obama administration and later worked on communication efforts at SpaceX.
We've talked about this guy multiple times before, right?
His name sounded familiar.
That name
but
is
I don't-
so familiar to me. He's definitely been in some type of like alien
He's
talk that we've done
probably
before.
like a whistleblower.
Maybe so.
So, despite the setback, SpaceX remains the dominant company in global spaceflight. In an update, SpaceX said the rocket got as high as about 24 miles over the Gulf of Mexico. The video of the rocket captured flashes of several of the 33 engines failing on the lower portion of the spacecraft. That turned out to be too much for the guidance system to compensate, and the vehicle started tumbling in a corkscrew path. This does not appear to be a nominal situation. John Insprucker, a SpaceX engineer, reported during the company's live stream of the launch. The upper stage Starship vehicle apparently did not separate from the booster, and 4 minutes after liftoff, the automated flight termination system destroyed the rocket, ending the flight in a fireball. The launch lived up to SpaceX's promise of excitement guaranteed, and it avoided a worst case outcome of exploding on the launch pad, which would have required extensive repairs. Heavy lift rockets like the Starship are inherently more complex and more difficult to develop than smaller rockets. In addition, by aiming to make all pieces of the spacecraft reusable and capable of launching again a few hours after landing, SpaceX is attempting an engineering challenge that goes beyond what was accomplished in the previous 60 years of the space age. We're in the space age.
I know, right?
How cool. They might have a couple of questions to go look at in terms of why some of the engines may not have been running, Mr. Dombacher said. They'll look into it, they'll figure it out, and they'll come back the next time and they'll fix those problems and they'll move on to the next one. And eventually they'll get this flying all the way in orbit. I'm fully confident of that. The company's mantra is essentially fail fast but learn faster, said Dumbacher.
I like that. That's like a
I
good life
know.
motto to live by. I'm gonna get that tattooed on me.
I literally said that out loud whenever I was researching to Jeremiah. I was like, their motto is fail fast but learn faster. It's pretty cool.
That is.
So, traditional aerospace companies have tried to anticipate and prevent as many failures as possible ahead of time, but that approach takes money and time and can lead to vehicles that are over designed. SpaceX, instead, is more like a Silicon Valley software company starting with an imperfect product that can be improved quickly. Big NASA programs like the Space Launch System, which NASA used on an uncrewed mission to the moon in November, are generally not afforded the same luxury of explode as you learn. Government programs are not allowed to operate that way because of that, because of the way we have all the stakeholders being able to watch over you and tell you no, said Mr. Dombacher. So basically, Elon Musk, because he's Elon Musk, can afford to just build something, try it, and see if it works, and then fix it after it doesn't. But NASA is only allotted so much money, so they have to try harder to get it right the first time.
That's like really cool though, because I feel like we're gonna see like improvements and advancements happening so fast because they're launching like so many rockets, doing so many test runs. All right, y'all. Coming in at number 2, we have the Chinese secret space plane. And I'm not talking about that balloon that everybody was freaking out about. No, this is a space plane. Which, by the way, if you haven't heard the word space plane, that's kind of like what they're calling these crazy new spaceships. They're space planes because I guess ship was too outdated. They're a space plane now. So on May 8th, 2023, China's covert space plane landed after an experimental mission. This space plane, titled, and then it's like 6 Chinese words, so I'm not even going to try saying that because it's going to be awful. But
Chongfu, Shiyong, Xi'an, Hang Tian Qi.
You really
That
went
was
for
my
it.
best attempt.
Yeah, you're brave. I wouldn't have done that. We can't even say English words half the time.
I'll try it once.
So we're going to call it the CSS HQ. Actually, we're just going to call it the Chinese spaceship because that's still too much.
Yeah.
Space plane, excuse me. So anyway, this space plane has been shrouded in secrecy since its inception. During its first mission in September of 2020, this space plane was in orbit for a short period of 2 days only. However, the most recent mission, the Chinese space plane took off from the Gobi Desert's Launch Center on August 4th of 2022 and landed at the same location on May 8th, 2023, nearly a year later. Which, that's like a long time, I feel like, compared to the first launch, which was only 2 days. So this whole thing is like shrouded in secrecy, but the Chinese State News Agency did give us some information regarding the landing. And they shared it on a Chinese social media platform called Weixin, something like that. That's like crazy that they have their own social media platform. I wanted to mention that.
I mean, I bet you a lot of countries do. We probably do. We just don't use them.
I mean, I thought like Facebook was like worldwide or something. Maybe that's just my ignorant American self, but
who knows? Honestly.
Okay, anyway, that's where they shared the news on, was this social media platform from China. But what they said the reusable test spacecraft successfully launched by our country successfully returned to the scheduled landing site on May 8th after flying in orbit for 276 days. The complete success of this test marks an important breakthrough in my country's research on reusable spacecraft technology, which will provide a more convenient and inexpensive way to and from the peaceful use of space in the future. Don't really like how they put the word peaceful in there. It sounded a little too sketch for me, but like although specific details of the space plane's mission were not revealed, its activities throughout the test flight were documented by Space News correspondent Andrew Jones. Jones reported that the spacecraft conducted various small and large orbital maneuvers through its flight and that adjustments were made in the weeks leading up to landing. Additionally, the spacecraft released an unknown small satellite into orbit after 90 days of its flight. However, it remained very close to the spaceplane, according to the United States Space Force's tracking data, and its purpose and nature still remain unknown. Although China's research into reusable spacecraft technology marks a significant achievement, it is overshadowed by the United States' 6 test flights of the X-37B spaceplane since April 2010. I was so happy to find that we have a spaceplane too. And also, like, our spaceplane is killing their spaceplane right now. But China recently announced its mission to Mars in 2033. which is the same exact year that we're supposed to land on Mars. So it's kind of looking like the last space race might be happening again, but this time the contenders might be between the United States and China.
All right. And finally, we have our number one, the Mars simulation. So, NASA announced last month that they have selected their 4 crew members to live in a Mars simulation for 1 whole year. CHAPEA, which stands for Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog, is a series of analog missions that will simulate year-long stays on the surface of Mars. Each mission will consist of 4 crew members living in a Mars Dune Alpha, is what the building is called, in an isolated 1,700 square foot habitat at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. During this mission, the crew will conduct simulated spacewalks and provide data on a variety of factors, which may include physical and behavioral health and performance. The 3D printed habitat will include private crew quarters, a kitchen, a dedicated areas for medical, recreation, fitness, work, and crop growth activities, as well as technical work areas and 2 bathrooms. To obtain the most accurate data during the analog, the habitat will be as Mars realistic as feasible, which may include environmental stressors such as resource limitations, isolation, equipment failure, and significant workloads. The major crew activities during the analog may consist of simulated spacewalks, including virtual reality, communications, crop growth, meal preparation and consumption, exercise, hygiene activities, maintenance work, personal time, science work, and sleep. The schedule for the CHAPEA missions is the analog mission 1 that starts this summer. So they're about to get locked up in June. And then the analog mission 2 starts in 2025, where they'll do it again, and analog mission 3 in 2026. NASA is establishing a long-term presence at the moon for science and exploration through the Artemis missions, and during these missions, NASA will land the first female and first person of color on the moon. Knowledge gained on and around the moon using innovative technologies to explore more of the lunar surface than ever before will help send the first astronauts to Mars in the future. The participants were selected through NASA's 2021 call for applicants. You can literally just apply to go to Mars if you have, of course, certain credentials that make you a relevant choice, obviously. The 4 crew members and 2 backup crew members are as follows. First, we've got Kelly Haston, the designated commander of the crew. She is a registered member of the Mohawk Nation of the 6 nations of the Grand River in Canada. She's also a research scientist with experience building models of human disease. She has spearheaded innovative stem cell-based projects deriving multiple cell types for work in infertility, liver disease, and neurodegeneration. Then we've got Ross Brockwell, who is the designated flight engineer. He's from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and works as a structural engineer and public works administrator. His work focuses on infrastructure, building design, operations, and organizational leadership. Then we've got Nathan Jones, who is the designated medical officer. He's from Springfield, Illinois, and is a board-certified emergency medicine physician specializing in pre-hospital and austere medicine. I had to look that one up. It's medicine practiced in remote areas, a long way from professional medical help. He currently works as an emergency medicine physician, emergency medical director, and tactical medical physician at Springfield Memorial Hospital. He's also an associate professor of emergency medicine at the Southern Illinois University School of Medicine. Then we've got Alyssa Shannon, who is the designated science officer. She's from Sacramento, California, and is an advanced practice nurse at the University of California, Davis Medical Center. She has a strong interest in data visualization and the use of accurate data to improve patient outcomes. She originally worked as an elementary school teacher before returning to school to earn a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. After working as a telemetry registered nurse, she earned a Master of Science from UCSF as a cardiovascular clinical nurse specialist with a minor in genetics. And then the two backup crew members are Trevor Clark from Thousand Oaks, California, and he is a senior principal engineer in the aerospace and defense industry. And then Anka Celario, a microbiologist in the U.S. Navy. So,
They literally built the Avengers of space, of smart people for this. That is so cool that each one of them has a job. They took the best scientist that they could find, the best medical officer, the best engineer, and then what was the first person? Oh, just she was a research scientist. Okay.
Yes.
But she was the leader, the commander of the crew. That is so cool. They took all these elite people, and that's who they're sending out to Mars. That makes me feel a lot better about the mission.